The marketplace was alive with chatter, footsteps, and the clinking of coins when the Apache, a tall, weathered man whose eyes carried both the storms of hardship and the calm of wisdom, walked quietly among the stalls, his presence commanding respect not by force but by the silent dignity with which he carried himself. Yet suddenly, amidst the ordinary sounds of daily trade, a sharp cry tore through the air, a sound so raw with pain and desperation that it pierced his chest like an arrow, and when he turned, his gaze fell upon a frail old woman, her back bent not only by the weight of years but also by the heavy hand of her own son, who was striking her with words as cruel as his fists, blaming her for poverty, for hunger, for a life he himself had squandered. And the people around them, though shocked, remained frozen, caught between fear and indifference, unwilling to intervene, until the Apache, moved by an instinct stronger than thought, stepped forward, his deep voice breaking the silence as he commanded the man to stop, a command so steady, so unwavering, that the son's raised hand faltered midair, though his anger burned with defiance as he snarled, asking what business a stranger had in family affairs. And yet the Apache did not argue, did not posture with threats. Instead he fixed his eyes on the trembling woman, her cheeks wet with silent tears, and he said softly, "No mother deserves to be broken by the child she once carried," words that carried such undeniable truth that murmurs rose among the crowd, awakening their buried conscience. And for the first time, the son looked around and saw not an ally but dozens of eyes condemning him, judging him, stripping away the false power he had wielded. Yet still his pride flared and he shouted that he owed the old woman nothing, that she was a burden. But before he could lash out again, the Apache stepped between them, his broad frame shielding her fragile body, and though many expected him to strike the man, to repay violence with violence, he instead extended his hand, not to hurt but to halt, saying, "If she is a burden to you, then give her to me, for I see not a burden but a blessing, not a weakness but the strength that raised you." And the marketplace fell utterly silent, astonished by the offer, astonished by the love a stranger showed more than the son who had been born of her blood. And the old woman, through trembling lips, whispered that she was unworthy, that she had failed even in raising her own child to kindness. But the Apache knelt before her, lowering himself as if before a queen, and he said, "You are worthy of honor because you gave life, and life is the greatest gift." Words that cracked the stone of every heart listening, words that lifted her chin and made her see herself not as discarded but as precious. And the son, cornered by the weight of shame, tried to slink away, but the Apache stopped him not with chains but with truth, telling him, "If you walk away now, you will spend your life in emptiness, for no man who betrays his mother walks in peace." And though the young man spat bitterly and fled, his escape only revealed his cowardice, while the Apache, without hesitation, took the old woman's hand and guided her to his horse, treating her as though she were light despite her trembling. And the crowd, once passive, erupted into applause, not because of force or spectacle but because they had witnessed something rarer than power. They had witnessed compassion lived out boldly, and that day, many swore they would no longer stay silent when cruelty arose, for silence too had been beaten down by the Apache's courage. And as he led the woman away, he did not boast, did not even glance back, for to him it was not heroism but simply humanity. Yet in the heart of the old woman, something that had long been buried awakened, a hope that maybe her final years would not be spent in sorrow but in dignity. And in the weeks that followed, the Apache gave her shelter, gave her food, but more than that, he gave her something her own son had stolen. He gave her respect, and when villagers came to visit, drawn by the story they had heard, they did not find her cowering in shadows but sitting in sunlight, her eyes bright with laughter as she told them, "I am not abandoned, for kindness is a family greater than blood." And the people, humbled, began to care for their elders with gentler hands, remembering that what they neglect today may be what they become tomorrow. And though many expected the old woman to wither soon, she instead blossomed in the soil of kindness, her frailty becoming a symbol of strength, her survival a testimony to the fact that love can revive even the most withered of spirits. And the Apache, though asked often why he intervened, always gave the same simple answer: "Because if I do not honor the mothers of this earth, then I do not honor life itself." Words that spread beyond his village, carried in stories, sung in whispers, retold around fires, until even those who had once ignored the cries of the vulnerable began to see that compassion is not weakness but the greatest form of courage. And years later, when the old woman passed peacefully in her sleep, her hand resting in the Apache's as though she had never been alone, the people gathered not to mourn, but to celebrate, for her life had become proof that no wound is too deep to be healed by kindness. And as they laid her to rest, the Apache spoke not of sorrow but of gratitude, saying, "She came to me broken, but she left this world whole, for she reminded us all that the greatest legacy is love." And his words became etched in their hearts like scripture, guiding them to build a community where no elder was left to hunger, no voice was left unheard, no mother left unloved. And though the son who had once struck her lived far away, plagued by the emptiness the Apache had warned him of, he one day returned, ragged and hollow, falling at the Apache's feet, begging for forgiveness, and though many thought the Apache would scorn him, he instead lifted him up and said, "You must forgive yourself, for only then can you honor the woman who gave you life," and those words broke the man's heart open, filling his eyes with tears as he vowed to spend the rest of his days serving the poor. And thus the cycle of cruelty ended not in vengeance but in redemption, for the Apache's reaction had not only saved a woman but had awakened a people, teaching them that kindness is contagious, that courage is not in the hand that strikes but in the hand that lifts, and that when one person dares to act with love, the world itself is changed. And so the story of the old woman and the Apache was told for generations, not as a tale of violence but as a testament to the power of compassion, a reminder that humanity's greatest strength lies not in power, not in wealth, but in the simple choice to protect, to uplift, to love. And even now, whenever a cry for help echoes, hearts remember the man who once heard such a cry and answered with courage, moving everyone not with fists, but with love.